Hi. So, hello, I will be starting this home. So welcome to this YouTube channel that is actually starting just now. So this is the first record. My name is Audra and this channel is dedicated to amazing person whom I love so much. His name is David Matisyahu Lipman, or Dovydas Matys Lipmanas, as he would sign his papers when writing in Lithuanian. He was a Lithuanian Jewish historian. He was a researcher of the history of the Jewish communities in Lithuania. But also he was so many things. I know for sure that living today, like he would have multiple YouTube channels and he would be writing a blog or maybe several blogs on different topics. So he had this amazing, vibrant, curious mind. I firmly believe that he was like a person from the future that was born in the end of 19th century. He was one of the founders of Jewish Historical Ethnographical Society in Lithuania. I do research, so one of my main aims is to make his name known even more widely than is known now. He is known by people who are interested in European Jewish history because he wrote 2 books. He published 2 books, actually. He wrote many more, but he was able to publish 2 books, one about Kaunas and Vilijampolė, and the second is about Zamut, Žemaitija, which is part of Lithuania. So I do research on the life and murder of David Matisyahu Lipman. So the reason I need this channel, there are so many whys. I had this idea that, I do my research, I do it diligently, and then I would publish maybe some articles in peer-reviewed magazines, and maybe I'll go to university and then I will write like for PhD, and then I will publish a book, and then this book maybe someday will be translated to English, and then some people also beyond Lithuania would know more about Lipman. And then I realized like my way of thinking is so old-fashioned, and Lipman would be like what? We have YouTube as a channel of communication, and I thought that maybe I'll do it differently because the way I do research now, I know that it's very slow, and partly because of my personal way of living, and the big part of it is also lack of sun. Especially this winter in Lithuania, we have record low sun. Some people think that Helsinki in Finland is north, but comparing to Helsinki, Lithuania is much, much darker in winter. So everything goes very slow, and then I thought that maybe having YouTube channel would be better because then I would make short videos and it would be like a process, like it would give you information not only about this amazing person, but also what is knowledge and what is speculation, and how things we think we know change when we find some new documents, new facts, and then we start to have new interpretations, and then you'll be able to see how and why sometimes different researchers and different historians, they have different hypotheses and different ideas about what happened. Even like the event was one or the person was one, but interpretations are widely different. And then I started to think like when and how should I make this channel? I should maybe research more because at this moment I don't know some very, very important details about Lipman. Then I thought that yes, but maybe also I need to do something, to publish some articles just to have some status and to say to you that I'm a well-established historian as a researcher. And then I thought, but then maybe I need to buy new clothes, or I don't know, fix my front teeth or something, those nonsenses that come in a way to many YouTube channel makers. I also had them, but today I just realized no, I just will take a shower and then I will talk with you. And I'm grateful to Monica for this microphone and for all support you give me. and also to Freddie and to Rasa, who support me in everything I do. Lipman was not only historian and ethnographer, he was also what we call now influencer. He was author of the idea of studying the daily chapter of Bible. Daily chapter of the Bible, and this idea came to him, or at least he started to promote it at the end of 30s. You can imagine what the mood was in Europe at the end of 30s. So he proposed this idea. He at the time was living in the tiny shtetl in the middle of Lithuania, and I will not call it in the middle of nowhere, and maybe in later videos you will know why. So he was living in this small place, and then he proposed this idea, and he was so influential that newspapers, Jewish newspapers, and they would publish those chapters of Bible, and not only those chapters, but more like contemplation on those chapters. And at this moment, I don't know much about details of this initiative. So if you, by any chance, know more or maybe read more, or maybe your family still keeps this tradition from the end of 30s, please write to me. I would be very, very, very curious to know more details. And yes, to be honest, this channel is really, really selfish channel. The first thing I want to talk about Lipman every day with everyone who just wants to listen to it. So I feel inspired by him and his life and the way he managed to achieve so many things. My aim is to research not only his life and not only his publications, but also find details about his death and about his murders and all those circumstances that surround his death and death, murder of his family too. So that's the first reason that I'm really interested in that, and I think about that a lot. So my just basic interest is just to share it with you. The second aim is take you with me to this research and show you how slow it is and how still it's very slow, and at the same time it's really, really inspiring, and it really changed it. The research is changing the life of the researcher. It's just like Dao, the way that you choose is changing you. So many things that I do today that are directly not related to this research, but are because of this research. The people I know today, the books I read today, the hobbies I have today, they're very much related. And ability to take what you do seriously, not yourself, but the work that you do. It's really, it was foreign to me, Many women, we are somehow trained to neglect ourselves, and what we do is not as important, So I also was like that, and only, I think, influenced by Lipman and several contemporary artists that I admire, I started to take seriously what I do, and it really, it's a game changer, this seriousness. Not about yourself, about things you do. So my aim is to take and, go with you through this research, and it's amazing to get to know more about what would that mean to be born with this amazing, vibrant mind of a curious person, of a courageous investigator and scientist by nature, and to live in a remote area without internet connection. The third aim is to feel connected with people. I'm very bad in emails. Just recently, I'm so slow in responding, and sometimes I truly believe that I wrote a letter, but I didn't. So I thought that maybe if I just record this video message and I'll send to my friends, when they ask me what did you find, So I thought those video messages would be also one way of keeping connection, and also another important thing that I'm looking, I believe I can find the library of Lipman. He had a library. What he had, his books were marked with a stamp. My colleague and my former boss and researcher at National Library of Lithuania, Judaika Research Center, Lara Lempertienė, she found just recently one book that belonged to Dovydas Matys Lipmanas. So this book is with dedication, so he gave this book to someone. And I also will make a video who I think this person was. So because the books were marked, there is a chance that we can find them if they were saved during the Holocaust. Some books were burned. I have suspicion that Čekiškė was that kind of shtetl that books could be maybe preserved by people. And also later I will tell you why I have the suspicion. And because in some towns people would save, and the ethnic Lithuanians, Christian Lithuanians would save books. And later they were given to what is now National Library. Some of books, they are in private hands today. And to know those circles of people who collect old books, you have to belong to them. I do not belong to them. So if by any chance you know them or you've ever encountered a book with the stamp, I would be grateful for any information. It's not that I want to buy those books or something. I really need to, for me, it would be the miracle and the hope that maybe also not only his books but also his manuscripts survived. Maybe we could find his manuscripts, and because he was ready to publish several books, the material was already collected, but he was probably, I would speculate now, that he had no financial means to do it. Okay, so David Matys Lipman was born in 1888 in Lithuania, in Zamut. And Zamut, or Žemaitija, or Samogitia, is a very, very special place. Lithuania is by itself a special place, but Western Lithuania, which is Žemaitija or Zamut, is just totally, out of this world. The people that live there have very specific character. I'm overgeneralizing now. They're very stubborn and very resilient, and they have very strong character. They're very ambitious, and they just, no matter how anything happens around them, they do what they want to do. They're just that kind of people. And yeah, if you are from Žemaitija and you will not agree with me, I agree with you that you may not agree with me. That's how people from outside of Žemaitija, we see people from Žemaitija. Doesn't matter what ethnicity you are living in Žemaitija. You could be, or what religion you are. You could be Christian, you could be Jewish, you could be, Žemaitija just makes you a very special person. You will never give up on anything. Dovydas Matys Lipmanas was born in 1888 in Žemaitija, in Nemakščiai, or Nemakšt. Nemakšt was tiny shtetl. He was born in a family that has history. His grandfather was the famous Gaon Rabbi Zebulon or Zebulon Leib Barit of Plungė. To my knowledge, there is no published book that was written by Rabbi Zebulon Leib Barit of Plungė, but his teachings are collected in the book that his son-in-law wrote. And influence on whole family was immense. So I will tell you in a separate video about the family. So this time it's enough to know that his grandfather was famous rabbi and wise teacher, and Lipman studied with his grandfather when he was a boy. So when grandfather died, Lipman was 14 years old. Yeah, so the first influence was from his grandfather. And later, his contemporaries would describe that Lipman's writing style is rabbinic. I have no idea what it is because I cannot read Hebrew and I cannot read the books written by rabbis. What I can tell you about the style that Lipman has in his books, in his writings, is very kind. So it's like a teacher who's very kind and gives you some context and gives you some insight, but also leaves you with this, you need to work with this idea. You are not told 100% what you need to think. You need to work with this idea. And also, if he wants to say something that is not very pleasant information, let's say when he writes about the golden years of Jewish community in Lithuania, which would be first 5-6 years after the restoring of independence in 1918, up until 26 maybe. So he puts the emphasis on this bright side of this golden age, and then you would not even encounter in his text kind of doom and gloom of the present when he writes. He's just like, you could know that, you would know this, because when reading this you will know that now it's not this golden time. That means that the golden times are over, at least for this moment. But in the text you would have this very positive and very gentle attitude that the author has. Maybe this is rabbinic style, I'm not sure. What I didn't mention was how Lipman earned his living, because he definitely would not earn living by publishing books. On the contrary, he would publish his books on his spending his money. He was a pharmacist. In 25, he became editor of a weekly newspaper, Het Lita, which was published in Hebrew, and it was a newspaper that was published by the Organization of Zionists of Lithuania. So Lipman was Zionist, and more than that, he came from the family of Zionists who were Zionists before political Zionism, and I will definitely do a video about it. But he was editor, to my knowledge, for a year, and then he moves to Čekiškė from Kaunas. Čekiškė is about 50 kilometers from Kaunas. It's on the border between Žemaitija and the rest of Lithuania. So between Zamut and Lithuania. And many people who live in Čekiškė, they are from Zamut. So it's really like last forepost of Zamut in Lithuania. And then he stays there, he works there. So I read this book. It's a book about Čekiškė, the Čekiškė. It is written by Antanas Vaičius. Antanas Vaičius is a local historian. He is researching local history in this region, in Čekiškė and around Čekiškė. And he himself is from Čekiškė. And in 1941, he was 8 years old. So he is the child, the Christian child, who saw what happens to Jewish community. So he is a very unique person in a way that he remembers the Jewish community before Holocaust of the Čekiškė. Yeah. So in this book, I just read that the pharmacist of the town, Dovydas Lipmanas, only one name was used, was murdered in the Čekiškė, together with the barber, Meir Klas. So they were not killed in this mass killing that happened at the end of August, and it happened not in Čekiškė. People were taken to Vilkija, which is about 20 kilometers from Čekiškė, and they were killed there. and some people were taken earlier, men were taken earlier. Lipman was murdered separately together with the barber, Meyer Klaas, or Meyers Klaases. They were murdered by the group of men with white arm bands, so-called white arm benders. They were Lithuanians. They came from Vilkija, which is the bigger shtetl. When you look at the map and you will see those two shtetls, 20 kilometers between them, you would think it's the same place, the same region, right? And people are connected. Yes and no. They are connected, but there is this kind of really strong regionalism in those small places. So, for example, my village is 7 kilometers from Czechia. We would see Czechia as a foreign country. You know, it's not us. It's not us. It's them. So and local, those almost tribal battles between different small towns or different villages it's a long tradition in Lithuania. And I'm speaking now about ethnic Lithuanians. So groups of ethnic Lithuanians would beat each other on the grounds of where you live, you know. So people from Czechia would be beaten by people by Vilkija. I don't know why I say people, I should say young men. So young men by living in Czechia would be beaten by young men who live in Vilkija for ages. So there is an animosity between those small places. So Lipman and Klaas were killed by young men from Vilkija. So from the perspective of people in Czechia, the ethnic Lithuanians and Christians, they were killed by others. They were not killed by them. When you think about Holocaust in Lithuania, it's not an excuse, you know. It's not an excuse that people were always killed by the other. Never by us, you know, never by us. So it's a mental trick that we play with ourselves, you know. So the killing of, I remember one, just looking through the files of the White Armband group in KGB archive. I also felt kind of like, at least he was not killed by his neighbor, you know. But yeah, but still he was murdered. So my aim is to find the place where it was done and exact people, and it is not easy. And I read main files that have a bit like information about him, because it's that they just randomly mention that he was killed that day, but they do not, investigation doesn't go deep, because they are investigating other killing that was perpetrated by the same group, and it was in Vilkija. The investigator is in a hurry and doesn't care, you know. I mean, he came from probably Soviet Russia, and he doesn't care about those names of little towns, let alone names of people. He just needs to like have a paperwork and to collect some evidences that would be enough for the capital punishment of this leader of the group. That's it. So yeah, but I will leave it for the next video, when I will be talking about David Matysyahu Lipman, and I hope you subscribe to this channel, and we will be able to meet next week.